All right, now we're on. Hello. So, as I said before, I'm going to do some video lessons that will talk about Hebrew to teach you a little bit about the basics of how you can do Hebrew. Originally, I was just going to do 2 lessons, but I don't want to make the videos more than like 35 minutes. And then, there's always going to be like a few, maybe like at least 2 to 3 minutes of announcements on each video. So after that, then maybe the first 5 minutes are already gone. So I only got maybe 20 to 30 minutes of just putting the actual lesson in. So that's kind of why I decided I might do more than just two. It might even go up to 4 videos. So just to get you a basic idea. Now I intend to cover maybe about like okay. Well, anyways, so some background. I I don't consider myself an expert in Hebrew. I just study some of it in some courses. So we use this book, The Basics of Biblical Hebrew, by Gary D. Partico and Miles Van Vanderpelt. Miles Vanderpelt is also the professor that does the videos, the series that comes with these texts. So there's also a video version you can watch, but it doesn't really have free access. So that's but you can get a trial to watch them using from Zondervan. So that's how I finished it over last summer. But I just basically I gonna teach it. I'm gonna teach it in the way that I kind of like help myself to learn it. So I will kind of instead of just throwing down the actual material, okay, this is A, this is B, this is C, I would say like how I would explain also my thinking process of how I memorize A, B, and C, to kind of get you to to see it, like everybody's brain works slightly differently, but that you will see like how that might be helpful. Anyways, let's just dig right in. So let's look at some Hebrew. So here is the Macho Mame website that I like to use. So I don't really I think if you go to like the main website, because I already clicked on the link to go to Genesis, but I think if you go to the main website, I think it does mention a little bit about how they get their sources and stuff. So just a few things off the back. Hebrew is an ancient language, as you know, and biblical Hebrew does differ from modern Hebrew. I don't think by a lot, but definitely I think that they change the pronunciations sometimes. And now they have a few different dialects, where they used to be just kind of more so the one dialect, but not so much. I mean, even the Hebrew itself in the Bible has changed over time because it's covered such a long period. And there's apparently something called late Hebrew, and then something called earlier Hebrew. This is obviously Genesis, so it's got to be earlier Hebrew, because it's one of the earlier books that's written. So that's sort of like the difference, just like in English, how it kind of changes over time. So the difference in the way the grammar and like the vocabulary will indicate like the dating of the book as well. So one thing that does change over time is they use the word I later on to also mean spring when you get to Joshua. So that's sort of like one thing that you notice that it's not uh, the spring in the town of Jerusalem, or the I in the town of Jerusalem, but they're using that same word. But that was not used in sort of like the first, like not it wasn't really used in the Pentateuch, but it does get used later on. So that's one thing that that's one change. Just like how like in English the word gay also changed meaning after a few decades. So that's that kind of thing happens in Hebrew too. That kind of helps them to sort of more guess the dating of certain books, and that probably helped them initially find out, okay, this book is probably older than this book, sort of thing, or this scroll was older than that scroll when they were talking about the Hebrew. So I mean, you look at it, and what you notice is that it's almost like it would be very like if you printed it with ridges, like like 3D printing, and it's like it pretty much like it looks like with all the little dots and stuff that you see all over the place here. It looks almost like the language, the sensor language, like people who can't see, like they put their hands over, and then they know that this number of dots, it's like meant for like this word or whatever kind of thing. So that's kind of like another impression I get when you first look at Hebrew. You kind of might get that impression too. I don't know, well, at least I do. But the other thing is, originally Hebrew didn't even have those dots. So in the 6th century, the Masonerites, they actually put in the dots to kind of help indicate what vowel they're using in the word in terms of its pronunciation. So they invented their own dot system. So I'll kind of touch upon that a bit more when I talk about some of the vocabulary and how I memorize the vocabulary based on some of the dots and stuff like that, and the way different letters are spelled. That's kind of how you it can give you some hints on how to memorize, or some tips or pointers on how to easier memorize the vocabulary. So also the other thing good about this website is, even though it goes pretty fast, you can also use this listen to this chapter in Hebrew option, and somebody will read it in much better Hebrew pronunciation than I will. And so, but anyways, my pronunciation is not really good. I just kind of like I initially I learned a lot of the vocabulary without learning the pronunciation. So it's a little bit backwards, but like it's really hard. There's a lot of different things you gotta memorize with so like like, even like in English we would just use the vowel, we just put it in like beginning. Although like you can say, oh, Hebrew, a lot of things more to memorize, but it's also more explicit. So because their vowels is that they have a short e sound, and a long e sound would be a different vowel. So here this is like a kind of a longer a sound here with this little t, and this is the shorter a sound with the little like dash. So that sort of like but I also use that for another word, which I'll talk about in the vocabulary. It's like how to distinguish this word from this word. Is the vowels. It's just the vowel is different. But then that value, I think, in modern times, that little T kind of looks more like a a handle for a stop sign. Anyways, when we get to the word Sabbath in the vocabulary, you'll see what I'm talking about. But for now, just to give you like a basic overview of how it is that so like the word ordering is different, and also like aside from the vowels and stuff, what they tend to do is they because you notice here it says it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what happens here is, it's not that Hebrew doesn't have like the word duh or whatever stuff like that, but the words like in and duh and stuff like that, and they tend to join those to the words. So Mary likes to call it like it's like Lego language, and you kind of join the little words together, sort of thing. So that's kind of like what happens there. And also like sometimes the words even just kind of like disappear, like like the word "the," for example. Usually it's this like letter here attached to a word, like this is the heaven, or heavens, because this is actually like in the English they say heaven, but some English translations will say heavens, and they're not exactly wrong, but the word this itself is usually translated heaven or sky, or it could be skies as well. But the problem is that like it also has a kind of a plural ending here, which is not what these last two letters usually indicate. So I can understand why some English versions translate it as God created the heavens and the earth, but in this particular English translation, they just say the heaven and the earth, which I would say, in my opinion, given the context, I think that seems more accurate, because usually when I see Shemayim, in the vocabulary they teach it as just heaven singular, but that's also similar with the word God here, It's also like has a plural ending, but they, the Elohim, but they also kind of like, with the plural ending, but is actually usually indicating a singular God. They won't say in the beginning God's created the heavens and the earth, but they will say in the beginning God created heaven and earth. So how you translate this is like Bereshit. Here is like this letter, this bait, which you see again here without the dagish, which I think I'll get a little bit dagish in the first lesson, but so what I do is like I'm not gonna teach you exactly like okay, like the first few chapters in the textbook teach you about like this, and this, and so I will teach you a little bit differently. So I will talk about the dagishes and stuff like that, and all that, and how that works. But I don't think I'm going to teach all of the pronunciation in one lesson. So I kind of spread it out, and hopefully that will help your brain to look at. I learned a little bit of pronunciation. I learned a little bit of vocabulary, and I learned a little bit about the alphabet, like today, which is what we're going to cover in today's lesson. Then hopefully that will actually kind of like, because I think like a lot of languages is probably better when you kind of learn everything at one time. Like just I feel, even though the authors of the textbooks, some of them, they think that it's better just to learn how to pronounce each letter, learn how to pronounce each word, and then you go into, and then we just go into the actual like what does this word mean, how does that translate to a sentence. So learn the pronunciation first. But the problem is that for me, I find is that there's a lot of different rules about the pronunciation that it's a lot to memorize, even before you start to like it's throwing a lot at you at once. And I think like even if you're learning a language normally, like whether you grew up like with English as a kid or even you were taught English, is that they don't normally teach you like that. Like what I'm saying is that like even like the way that we got like some letters are sort of silent in English, some letters have a longer pronunciation or short pronunciation. Like I said, Hebrew will use different indicators in the vowels to indicate like a shorter vowel or a longer vowel in terms of or ah, but like or the second one that I pronounced being longer. But like in the English, there is like that same thing, for certain words, like this letter is like very silent, or this letter is like barely pronounced, or this letter might have a slightly different pronunciation in this word, like the word cut, or the word company, right? Like the C kind of sounds slightly different in one word over the other. But the thing is, like when we learn the language, there's no like definite rule. Okay, in this word, if it's followed by a O or followed by a U, it's obviously that does change the pronunciation. But then there's no like so every time it's followed by a U is pronounced more of a k, like cut, and then like every time it's followed by O is like there's no hard rules even in the English, right? So doesn't, and even with Hebrew the same thing. There's lots of exceptions or whatever. So what I'm saying is that even when you're learning like English, you kind of like have like you like you might like say for example this word goalie here, like you might say, it looks similar to the word goat, so it does actually have the same pronunciation, like goalie or goat. But what I'm saying is like you're like, even but when you pick up a language, what you do is you just tend to already memorize how the word is pronounced, right? Like you don't really like memorize. Okay, because it has this G followed by O, and then like how do I know it's not pronounced ally, right? Instead of goalie, right? So it's like there probably is some pronunciation guides, but the other thing about English is because it's composed in so many different languages that you memorize like in this rule might apply for this word but not for another word, because it's based off another language. It came from a different language originally, so then that's why it has a different pronunciation rule associated with it. So it's for English, for example, like it doesn't really make sense to memorize pronunciation rules. So maybe it does make more sense to do it in the Hebrew, but that's not how I learned the language. So I'm not going to teach it that way as well. I'm gonna just like do it the way I do it my way, So so going back to the Sierra Bereshit, so the B sound obviously comes from the letter bait here, so Bereshit. So like yeah, there is a few rules of how but I just remember like even like for this first word here, Bereshit. It's because I did a message about Bereshit and where I used it, and I just looked up, how to pronounce the in the beginning in Hebrew, and it told me Bereshit. So that's basically I didn't really, the first time I learned this word, I didn't learn how to say it based on the pronunciation rules. I just like because somebody else had said, this word is pronounced Bereshit, then I just like okay, it's pronounced Bereshit, right? So so that's how I know it, It's like, and then obviously like with words that you maybe don't know or like how it's pronounced, you obviously probably will revert back to the rule. So let's do that for the second word. This here looks like it's bara. Okay, so the difference is like here with when there's no dagish, so there's no like when there's no dot, it's pronounced more of a v, so like a v, like which the textbook would tell you as well. But with the dot in there, it's more of the b, like more of a b sound, like bar. So this is bara, but this is bara. They both have the like same length because they have the same length on the vowel here. Because this is a t and that's a t. And then the rule would also say that you can't have two vowels in one syllable. So so that's why you have to separate this as the second syllable ra from this here the first syllable ba. Because otherwise it's the way they normally, according to the pronunciation rule, you wouldn't normally have two vowels in one syllable. So that's basically like the basic rule of pronunciation. So it's like Bereshit bara Elohim Yat. So the word at is usually kind of a with word. So it's actually not really translated here. It's more of a preposition. So it's not really translated into the English. It's more of a just like it joins things. So like God created, what did he create? Like he kind of like he created like this. So basically this addition of this word here just kind of just links this with this. That's basically what it does. It's like it's kind of say like I am talking about the same concept in this part of the sentence as I am in this part of the sentence because I included this preposition here as well as in the second part of the sentence. And then the and actually only comes from this letter here. So so God what? So it's like I think here is that the way usually the Hebrew pronunciation order is usually so like it's a lot easier like because like when, in our courses like when we have tests and exams for Hebrew, we gotta memorize like, so basically we don't memorize, but what I'm saying is that they would give us just the Hebrew and we gotta translate into the English. But what I'm saying is it helps that to have the English answer already, that okay, if you know how Hebrew usually is different from English, that they would probably put the verb first. So they will say said God. So here like and God said, right? So they will say and said and then God. Right, so then like so they wouldn't normally say God created like we do in English, but in English we wouldn't say created God the heaven and the earth. But Hebrew, that's usually not 100% of the time, but the majority of the time the grammatical orders they would say they would say like said God or created God. So then I know off the back that because all these other words can't be possibly mean created, this word here, bara, must mean created or made. In some cases, the word for made and create might be the same verb, but we just translate it differently in the English. But for them, it's just the one word in the Hebrew. So so either of those words is part of what I think that word means. So it's just like the basically this really short sentence here is like in the beginning, created God. With the like created God the heavens. So this is the and then this is the heaven part, Shemayin here, the heavens, and the arats, or Aretz, and the land. So more literally, this word is usually just on its own is kind of just like the land. But of course, it could also be translated earth. But when they say earth, they sort of mean like the way we mean like earth. Sort of when we're not talking about the globe as well. Like it's like, the dirt. So like God created the sky and the dirt. Sort of that's. So a more literal reading of this Hebrew is that's what it means. Like in the beginning, God created the heaven or the sky and the sky and the ground. So basically, so you could also translate it that way. But obviously, like you wanna keep everything that makes sense. So like if the next sentence start talking about like the afterlife or something, then you probably don't want to translate it as sky, because sky doesn't really normally indicate sort of the afterlife kind of thing. So depending on the context, usually that also can have some influence on what English words the translator would pick to do the translations. So that's sort of another thing to consider. So we're already at 20 minutes now. So basically, I think what was going to happen is that I'll just try to cover a few basic words and then the alphabet. So it makes my job a little bit easier because I didn't really. I had a lot of vocabulary I want to cover because of the way that I find that it's easy to memorize the vocabulary. But I didn't really have a chance to put it all in the document yet. So, but at least this way, it's good that I'm already at 20 minutes, so I don't have to work so hard to finish up that document to kind of release it at the same time as this video. So I'm gonna find you a good website for the Hebrew alphabet, and then we'll go for there for a few minutes, and then we'll learn some basic words, or not necessarily basic, but we'll learn some words. Let's put it that way. So here we're on a website called the Jewish Virtual Library, and even though this pop-up ad is a little bit annoying, so it comes with a pop-up ad where they solicit for donations here, but I think I want to keep this open just though for a little bit, because I think that they are doing this all this is it? For a reason, because there's different types of letters that in the alphabet. Yes, I don't know. So I don't know why that first letter is not in dark blue as well, because that's also it's also a guttural constant. So I'm not really sure. Maybe these colors are more random than I thought. Then they're not based on any. Yeah, they perhaps are not based on any particular reason why they're or system in terms of why this letter is that color and stuff like that. Anyway, so this is the alphabet. I don't think you see my cursor. I don't think it records that. I don't remember. Anyway, so this letter on the top right corner here, the green one, that is called an Aleph. So that's, and then the red one beside it is the Beit. So Hebrew is also read as I mentioned in some of my other videos, if you ever seen them, but maybe not if this is your first video that you've watched. That there's there's a Aleph, Beit. I mean, sorry, what am I saying? Where was it? Oh yes, that the Hebrew words are read in reverse than we would do in English. In English, we read it from left to right. Hebrew, they read it from right to left. So same thing with this alphabet here. They're starting from the top right corner, where it's like Aleph, Beit, and then that yellow letter is the Gimel, and then Dale, Hey. So that's not how you pronounce the letter. That is just the name of the letter. It's kind of like how we say the letter A, and then it's pronounced right? So it's not like we don't say it's the letter or the letter A, kind of thing, right? We don't actually pronounce it the way the necessary the name of the letter in the pronunciation. So same thing with Hebrew. This is what the Hebrew alphabet looks like. It's Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dale, Hey, Vav, Tet. wait, hey Bob, cyan, sorry, cyan het, and then on the second line, in the orange, in case the cursor didn't record, it's tet, tet, yod, kuf, and it's yellow here letter, this extra long yellow letter in the middle of the second line is called a lamed, and then there's a meme, noon, Samic, and then on the third line, the blue beginning, it's called Ayin, Pei. So it's better than just having the all black, which would be when I close this, so that's what you'll see. Sade, Kuf, Resh, Shin, and Tao. So it's normally one letter, but depending what vowel or dot they put on it, it's can be a different letter. In the for that little W looking letter called here, you see here the Shin Tao. I don't know if it shows the cursor again, but I'll find out soon enough whether it records the cursor. So they also like just like the textbook, they will say that and this is this thing is pronounced like A as in father, or like whatever, and then this has a pretty good guide if you want to use it as a reference telling you about how to pronounce things. So so I will talk more about pronunciation in the second lesson. So if you want to go to here and just read through it before the second lesson, that might not be a bad idea, just so you have in your brain like also like a written format of how things are pronounced before the next lesson. So when I do talk about more about pronunciation in the next lesson, you will kind of you'll be getting into that. I'm pretty sure I don't know about the cursor, but I remember that I think in my other videos it does record highlighting. So if I can find another website where it's not a picture, but like in text, like they have the Hebrew alphabet, that'll probably be helpful. So at least I can guarantee you that I'm pronouncing. I can show you visually what letter I'm trying to pronounce by highlighting it. So let's see if I can find something like that. Alright, so this website is also good. It's Hebrew for Christians. So I'll link that also in the description. But the reason why I couldn't find what I was looking for in terms of able to select the letters by highlighting them, like the way I've just highlighted this link here, so I can put it in the description. However, what I noticed on this website, so hopefully it does show the way I want it to show when I when I get it to video, is that when I click on it, it does change the page. So I guess that helped a lot. But I thought it was just able to kind of it just was lagging before. I thought I would just put a box around it before actually. But anyway, so here we'll just do it one by one then. Letter Aleph is it's actually not really pronounced at all. It's a silent letter always. But the thing is, depending on what vowel, like usually it's often a placeholder for a vowel. So depending on what vowel you attach to it, it could be a sound or u sound or sound or oo sound or whatever. The oo sound not as common, but usually it still usually can be a sound in a lot of cases, because they do put an a vowel under it a lot of the times in a lot of the Hebrew words, but not all of them. So same thing with ayin is also a silent letter, as you can see here. Does it say it's silent? Yeah, so no sound of its own, but usually has a vowel associated with it. So that's what it says here in the phonetics as well. So they're both silent letters in the Hebrew. So you don't pronounce it at all, but you do pronounce it depending on the vowels in the word and around this letter. So whether usually the vowels go under the letter, but in most cases, but sometimes the holem vav, I think it goes above it. I think it's actually, don't quote me on that one. I don't think I memorized the name. Like I said, memorizing the name of a vowel, doesn't really help you that much, right? I mean, it's the only thing is you just need to know what's a vowel and what's not a vowel, basically. Just like of English, right? Like, okay, so A, E, and I, and O, and U are vowels. But like, other than, um, we don't even name those vowels in English, right? Other than knowing that those are vowels, that's all we need to know. So the same thing, like I didn't really memorize all the names of the vowels, but I just know, like, that, when you see like a little symbol around the close to the letter, that usually means it's a vowel. So that's all I really like, the essential Hebrew words that I kind of get into my system. So like I said before, bait is basically like a b or a v sound, depending on whether or not it has this dot here, as you can see in the in this here in this the different forms. When it says in modern Hebrew, below the letter bait can appear in three forms, as a b, whatever. So apparently we're already at 30 minutes. So if you want to know more about pronunciation, I will only cover maybe the first line of the alphabet today, so we can save some time to go into the words a little bit. But like it's like b, so of right, for this letter, and gimel is a sort of a g sound, like God. Unlike English, they don't use this to spell God, but that's how you pronounce it. Like like go or whatever words like that. I think that was the word. Not like I said again. Don't quote me. Not 100%. Or go, I think is how they pronounce that word, which would start with this letter. So that's this is like the Hebrew sort of a G sound, like a go. So in this case, they didn't put a dot. So not all letters have a dot, or can have a dot. The only ones that can't, maybe we'll just do that. So that kind of that's gonna be like the end of the pronunciation and Hebrew, and alphabet lessons for today. We're just gonna talk about the letters that have two different pronunciations. Oh, it's actually, sorry, the G does have a that different pronunciation. So the bait, the gimel, has a different pronunciation. So it could be either G as in go, or more as in a gas, a ga, 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 a go sound, sort of. So it's almost the same, but not exactly. Same thing with this here, the dale, the D. It can either be more of a t sound, like almost like a the word "duh" in English, as per the textbook, or it could pronounce more like just a soft, like D, like more of a duh, duh, like a day, like the day sound. So so there's, depending on whether or not they put a dot in the bottom left part, like kind of like underneath the roof of the letter, sort of thing, for this dale. So here is also not one of the words. So it's pronounced sort of like it's, sorry. It's, so like I said, we'll skip that letter because it doesn't have separate pronunciations. So when you go through the alphabet, the next letter that has two possible pronunciations is this one, kaf, or it's more pronounced of a kind of a kuf. They say it more like kuf in English. Not exactly the same as another letter later on that's it's almost pronounced almost sounds exactly the same. It's more of a kuf, but I don't know. Like I said, I didn't really memorize how to pronounce the names of letters because I didn't really feel that was essential or important in terms of learning the language. Like I said, like because like even when you're learning English, maybe sometimes you don't have the alphabet fully memorized yet, but it's like, all right, so like like the word dog, right? D-O-G. Does it really matter whether you know that the last letter is the letter G, over the fact that you know what the word dog means? Like the four-legged mammal that barks, right? So sort of seems like that's a little bit more important to know what the dog means rather than remembering the names of all the letters, the letter D and the letter O and the letter G or whatever. Although sometimes memorizing that will help you to memorize the things in the language easier when you use more of the brain, which I'll talk about a little bit when we get to the words, which we only can allocate a few minutes for words today. So that's the koof. So koof is pronounced either as a king, k, a short k, kind of like in king, or like a or kite, sort of like a k, king, kite, sort of like a k, the regular kind of k that we use, or just like in English, if you want to be like cutlass, like that band, they kind of use that k a little differently. There's also like a ch sound. It could be a ch sound. Uh, um, I don't really know. Like that's why they use the example in the textbook of botch. But it's not really a k sound to me. But that's sort of like that's sort of how it sounds, like a k sound. So the other next one is the letter P, which is further down, all the way down in the third line, letter number 80. I don't know what Alright, so it's can be pronounced like p, pastor, or like they say it in the example, or f, more of an f sound, like a same thing of English. We use a phonetic, more of an f sound, or we might say phony, like a p sound. So, well, no, sorry, phony is still a f sound, almost like phony, right? Like it almost sounds like you could spell F-O-N-Y, right? I would just try to think of another example beside pastor where it's a p, maybe like ping, I guess. Ping, but like the word for ping, and the last letter that has two different pronunciations is here the last letter, the tau. Well, it's spelled like tav, but maybe, like I said, because it's maybe pronounced more of a tav in the modern Hebrew, but not in ancient Hebrew, we call it a tau instead. So it's more of a t, like a toy, or sometimes it's more of a ts, like a f, like fin. So almost like an f again, just like with the previous letter p. So this letter also has similar pronunciation to that other letter. Let's go back to it for a second. The letter P. Alrighty. So last order of a business, or last thing for today, is that I was gonna do a little bit of vocabulary. The file was not quite ready the way I wanted it, but hopefully before I post it online, so I'll spend a little bit of time on it. I'll fix it up a little bit so that it makes more sense before I give you the link that you will see on the description that kind of helps you with so I thought it more sense rather than just we get my face all the time, just to kind of show you the actual word on the screen, right? So just like in the second line of the Genesis 1:2, I think it was, where it says, and then God said, "Let there be the divide between whatever." So it says here, like, so here the very first, or it's not this is this here is the word for say or said, to say, or, but sometimes it can mean said. So they use the same word for say and said. It just depends on the context and the other words around this word, as well as sometimes they will add extra letters or whatever to show you it's in the perfect form and imperfect form. But it doesn't necessarily translate based on tense as much as we would in the English, where said is more often than not sort of a past tense. In Hebrew, it's not always the case like that. So this is like just something to keep in mind for future. So I'll touch more on detail on that in future lessons. For today, since we are already at 40 minutes of the video, I'm just gonna say that, like, this also with the vav here is means and said, with the yod here is part of a special spelling of the way that they would say it's like, it's called the vav consecutive. When you get to chapter 17 or 8 or 16 in the textbook, And so it means, is usually translated as and said. That's usually what that means, or said God. Sometimes in the English translation, they just knock off the and altogether because they don't really feel that it makes sense to say like, and God said. They would feel that that sentence makes more sense to just say God said. But in the original Hebrew, it might be written like this, which means like God had said, kind of thing. More literally, I guess, as a more literal translation. So something to keep in mind that they use a lot of nouns and pronouns. Also, is that there is no word for is or of in Hebrew. So that's the first grammar rule that I'll teach you, is that they just might not have the letter the or like in front of the word. So instead of saying the book, the good, they would say like the good, and then they'll say book. But if they want to say like if they what they're trying to say in the English is the good book, they would write it as the good the book. And that's how we, and in the English instead, it sounds a little bit counterintuitive. We would translate it as the good book. But if you want to imply that, if you want to associate, or I think they call it predicate, in the grammar textbook, if you want to associate like the good for the book, like the book as being good, or the book is good, they just knock off the "the" in the second word of the before the good. So they'll say the book good. But what that means in our English understanding, or the English thinking of sentences, actually, is that the book is good, or the woman is beautiful. So if you want to say the beautiful woman in Hebrew, you'll say the beautiful, and then the woman. So we will learn those words of beautiful and women, whatever, in lesson 2, and then I'll show you again. I'll show you in example of how that works in the Hebrew, but not for today, because we're over time, and we just want to cover a few basic words. So one thing you notice about Hebrew is that sometimes they would use similar letters or similar spelling in different words. And I don't have enough examples here because I didn't have a chance to find it before to finalize this document before doing this video. But so for example, but anyways, like I said, I will put in before I post the notes to the website. So this video still has some time before I release it on the YouTube channel. So hopefully I'll have time to get that around to that. So here is the word for gate. Sha'ah is the word for gate, and shama is the word for guard or keep. But as you can see, these two words look similar. But you have it like gatekeeper, right? So that's so to guard something. A gate could be used to guard something or to protect something as well, right? So what I noticed is that good thing about Hebrew that helps you memorize some of the vocabulary is some of the words with similar meanings might have similar spellings, or some cases they would use the exact same letters, but it's just different vowels. But it would have like a similar spelling. So I'll make a note for myself here. The word for king or queen, or the word and the word to become king or queen is actually very similar spell, but you'll see when I post this notes. So again, this is also like a lot of this, like a lot of the, until or again or whatever, all start with this as well. This letter here, ayin, silent letter. So I haven't had a chance to paste the other words in there. But until is basically the same word without this middle letter here. So that's sort of similar to the word still in English, right? So that's one way that you can kind of get yourself more familiar with how to memorize the vocabulary. And one of the guides that you can use is the Quizlet system, Quizlet.com. So what they do is they just flow down letters and words here, and you gotta type the English, unless you set it to only answer in English, or I mean to answer in both Hebrew and English. But I set it to only answer in English because that's most of the time that we're doing in our class. So this is the word good. So again, we'll come back to this next week. The word for good, like the good book, right, or the book, the good. And there's another word for book, but that's not in this particular chapter of the game. So it wouldn't show up, but we'll cover that in the next lesson. So which is 2 weeks from now. So I gotta do another message about the end times as part of a scholarship contest. At first, I thought about maybe releasing a draft version, because so then you get like a little bit of a bonus. You get a video every week instead of every other week. But I decided that I don't want people to kind of copy my ideas. So, and also, it's not really fair to give you guys the crap version and just give the contest people the good version, right? Why not give you the final version as well, So you'll see that probably early June or middle June, that there was gonna be a bonus video that come up on the week that I normally don't have a video at the moment, where I'm doing it every other week. You're gonna see my video that I'm gonna have a little message, a short message about the eschatological passages, is what the theme of this contest is. And they want, I think it's a 15 to 20 minute sermon, so only half the length of this video. So I gotta really pick and choose and decide what I want to include in that video, in terms of talking about eschatological passages. Means basically just like the end passages, or passages about the end times, is what I'm doing for that particular contest. So I'll post a video on that too, so you get a bonus video for the month in the weeks to come. One bonus video. And also, I did another video on vocabulary, if you noticed it on my channel, but at the time, which was months ago, that didn't record the audio properly. So I might redo that video as well, just to help you guys, a little extra remedial for those who want it about vocabulary. This time with the audio will work. All right, until next time. It's kind of funny when I'm looking at myself on the screen. It looks like I'm looking down, but the camera's like up there. So. But so I gotta get used to not watching myself and kind of more watching the camera when I do these things. But especially when I do the contest, it looks a little weird. I'm just kind of talking to. It's like, who am I talking to down there? Because the camera's up there and like up there, and my screen is down there. That I'm looking at myself right now. So.